So what's up, guys? It's the Player's Aid. I'm Alexander.
I'm Grant.
And today we're sat down with Joe Chacon and
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. I was going to say Dave, and I'm glad I didn't. Okay. So you guys are jointly designing a game. Is that correct?
Yep. Two, and there's a third designer as well.
Okay. And the game, it's a GTS game from Multiman Publishing, and it is called The Greatest Day, Utah Beach.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So it's not this.
Yeah.
It is like a 4 or 5 mapper?
4 large map and then a couple of small maps.
So you'll see, you'll see the pictures of it. It's huge. It's a big, massive square. But we wanted to, it looks so cool. And you had it here last year.
Right.
So we were excited then, but it's nice to sit down with you guys. I want to just have you guys take us through what that is, maybe a little bit about the GTS system for those who haven't played it before.
Sure. So the Grand Tactical Series is a company-level series of games. It started off with Where Eagles Dare and the Devil's Cauldron, focused on the Market Garden. Big games. Again, you're still talking 4 or 5 maps because they did the whole thing at company level. The system has evolved. There's another game out, Operation Mercury, which is the invasion of Crete, and a smaller 1-map game on No Question to Surrender on a defense in North Africa. So the series is pretty well established. We really enjoy playing it, and so we've become designers of the series. And just that feel at the tactical level, again, the grand tactical level, of companies in Normandy through the Hetros, it's an awesome feeling when you play the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the other game that's out and how this one will link to that.
So the original in the Normandy series was The Greatest Day, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Combined all 3 of the British beaches, British and Canadian beaches. That one came out, I believe, in 2013 or thereabouts. I joined, I was a playtester on that one, and then joined the design team shortly after that as we started moving to Utah. It took a little bit of time because we bookended the series with the theory that it's going to fit together. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make the maps work, and in about 5 years I'll tell you if I was successful. But we think we've got that done.
A lot of times,
I would have much rather gone sequentially and gone straight down the beaches. It would have been easier, but
it'll work out.
The airborne piece was really kind of the original focus, coming from Market Garden. The airborne was a focus there. So when you come to Normandy, the British airborne kind of started that and then moved into the landings, the naval landings. A straight move is to the American airborne and the naval landings on that side, so it was easy to do that from a game perspective. But it will make it challenging to put that middle piece in there.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. It's just making sure that it fits right. The Utah piece, as mentioned, it has 5 players initially on any of the campaign games. You've got 2 German divisions that start, and 3 American divisions, 2 airborne, and then the 4th Infantry that lands by sea. And so you've got anywhere from 2 to 5 players, all the way up to when you have the full game going at full strength. You can probably put 9 to 10 players into the game.
Lots of units to control,
or just 2.
Or you can just do it.
Right.
Yeah,
you know.
Right.
So it's easily modifiable based on different number of players.
What challenges does it create when you're doing the 5 to 9 players? What have you guys seen through that play testing? And
well, I think we played. Several of us have played the Where Eagles Dare and Devil's Cauldron combined, big with, in that case, maybe up to 8 players. And what you've got to do is, because the system works on a chip pool to activate a unit, commonly you've got to have some unique ways to keep everybody engaged. So you might actually have 2 chip pool cups, and you'll pull one and that action will go on one part of the battlefield, and you'll pull another kit and the action will go on simultaneously on the other side so that they don't interfere. That's always, when you have a lot of players, keeping everybody engaged.
You want to
is a
minimize
challenge.
that downtime.
Exactly. So that's
Although
one of the-
downtime allows for some strategizing and looking at the battlefield and
for those think ahead guys. But yeah. Exactly. If you're like me, it's like, all right, let's go.
right. Let's play. Let's play.
Now, the game that you've got set up, you have like a special dice shaker, is what I'm going to call it.
The peanut
It's
butter
got,
jar.
it's got a
right?
whole bunch of dice in there that they roll all the time. Do you use all the dice at once for different
No,
effects?
the game is unique because each of the weapon systems has a different color. So if you're small arms, it might be red. If your artillery, might be orange. So we're playing with Vernon Robinson, a great guy from North Carolina. He put all the colored dice in one jar, so he can shake it up
And just looks at the dice.
Just look at the dice
Okay.
that he's looking
I was trying
at.
to figure that out last night. I was like, he's rolling like 8 dice. So he was just looking
He's
at
just looking
I
at
think
white,
it's
red.
psychological warfare.
And- and
Like
what is
we're sat across the hall playing a different game, like,
And I heard it.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
someone's died. Now, a game like that, you had it here last year, and it looked like it was in a great state. How long does it take to create and design a game like that and get it to the table? Where does that start to where does it finish?
Yeah, I think it always starts with the interest. You gotta really have an interest in the battle. I think the OB work takes so much time because you're trying to find out how many tanks are in each company across the whole battlefield for every company so that you can get the combat values right. And then the maps. Tom did some great works on the map, and that's looking at the actual 1 to 50,000 topographic maps.
125.
Or 1 to 25 for this one. Detailed maps, and then you start breaking down the terrain for every hex in every city and every road.
And you want to get it right because some grognard
Right.
will point out one hex and give you hell about that, right?
And there
How
are-
dare you? That was polder and it's open.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
And there are a few areas where if a road hits a hex line,
No,
that you'll
something's
shade
gotta
it one way or the other.
Got
But
So there's some liberty there, but
a little bit.
Okay.
There is, design-wise, sometimes you got to take designer liberty and say, if I leave this really open, it's going to affect the game later on. So maybe we do need to put in some options.
And that was one difference in Utah from Sword Juno Gold. There's 3 new terrain types in Utah. One is orchard,
Okay.
which in this portion of in Normandy, they're well known for their apple orchards because they make an apple brandy out of it.
Very good.
Or at least that's what people know about it
Right,
when they
right.
leave. They don't necessarily think about the apples themselves.
Yeah.
But in Sword Juno Gold, there weren't that many, and so it was decided then just to make those hedgerows, because most of them had hedgerows around them. Was we moved over to Utah, that would have made almost the entire map hedgerows.
Okay.
And there is a special German defensive capability called bocage, understanding that those 2 words in English and French mean the same thing. However, in the game terms, one is a terrain and one is an effect.
Okay.
So if the Germans go into bocage, and we had a line of hedgerow hexes that ran across the entire map, then we would have the Maginot Line.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Very
we
difficult
came
to
up with a
crack.
different terrain that is historical, does fit. You cannot use bocage in an orchard, so it does give angles for the Americans to maneuver and
Okay.
not have the Maginot
Interesting.
Line aspect.
But if you look at the map, there's still plenty of hedgerows out on
yes.
that map
Oh, yes.
compared to the other one, and there's plenty of defensive terrain for the Germans.
Right.
That's one of the
Good
unique
setup
things
for
that we've
them,
seen in the
right.
play
Oh, yes.
test. I think there's a perception that, hey, Utah was the pushover beach.
Yeah.
Well, what I've seen watching the play test the last 2 or 3 times is the Germans can put up a good fight there, which is good. It makes it a good game because it's not the pushover that the perception might be. When you realize that the fighting maybe off the beach and into those hedgerows is very, very difficult.
yes.
So Tom, you talked to me yesterday about the maps and some of the research. You had mentioned that you had found an original copy of one part of the map in somewhere in Canada, right?
Well, we've got almost the entire map
Okay.
in 1 to 25,000, 1943, 1944 U.S. Corps of Engineers topo maps.
Okay.
And that's what the artist uses as the base that he overlays the hex on.
Right.
There is one small portion that we have not excuse me, we have not been able to find
And that's kind
the
of the
appropriate map. It's
western edge of the map.
Far west, on the west side of the Cotentin Peninsula. We have found it online, but it is not digital, so we have to send someone to Canada to go get it for us.
And we don't know where in Canada, right? Is that
Nick Richardson, the developer, he's the one who told me that he had the information about a week ago. I just didn't write it down. I've got it at home.
Got it.
So we're trying to figure out how to go get that one so we can add that one last little piece.
Why I wanted
8.5, 11
Yeah,
map
right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to bring that up because I know we talked to a lot of designers. You know, terrain's just one of those. It's really important, or you're not going to get the similar simulation
Right.
of the real battle
Right.
50, 60 years ago. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are going to that level of work. You may have to drive up to Canada. Who knows? You know, we know Canada's big. It could be on the Arctic Circle or something, but very interesting that you're going to that level of detail. What are you guys most proud of with the Utah beach game? What do you feel it does well? What do you feel it really models well?
It might be different. The division of labor has been great between Tom and I. I've really worked the exclusive rules, and of course we're working together. Going back and forth on some of the things that we want to add. But I think that, from my point, I work the exclusive rules and the counters and the values and those kinds of things. But I think the rules are solid, and that's easy because it's coming from
a
series, and we've got it's very similar to the rules that we use for Silver, Junior, Gold. And for me, that's really important because players that know the system, they don't want to come in and have to relearn a lot of things. People that have played Sword, Judo, and Gold will look at the Utah rules and say, okay, yeah, the naval activation, the landing's very similar. There's not a lot of changes. So I'm very glad for the rules. Tom's working the map and the scenarios, that's a mountain to climb, doing all the scenario work.
Well, and I'd say to the original question of what I'm the happiest with is really the ability to, as we've gone through play tests, it's not exactly a historical recreation, but it's similar.
Okay.
And so I believe we've got a system that works well enough to give the players the ability to really push the envelope.
Improvise on the fly a little bit.
Exactly, and in the game we're playing right now, we're almost within 2 or 3 kilometers historically accurate of where the game was at the end of 7 June. And so with the same challenges. And then there's a few other pieces that as we transitioned, and this was one of the difficulties of following in a series, you have to follow, and not being the designer on the first game, you have to follow what was already there. Well, the airborne rules don't fit for the American airborne drop. It was different. But we were able to take those rules without modifying the way they were done in the charts, and modify the way you apply them to the American and get a more historical flavor for the Americans, which was different than what the British faced. And so that took at least 6 to 8 months to play testing, going back and forth, trying to figure out what the modifiers were to make that work right. But I think we've got it down fairly well.
And those are part of the exclusive.
Those are part of the
scenario.
exclusive rules, right?
How many scenarios are they? Sorry, Alex.
I was going to ask that question.
Right now, I've got 27 planned.
Only 27?
Not all of those have been play tested.
Got it.
And so there's a few of them that I don't know will make the cut. Probably some of the smaller ones, just because at this scale, with the command system and everything, they're if you get too small, it starts to fall apart. And I've got a few that are very small that I would like to have in there. I just don't know until we play test them if it'll work or right.
Okay.
As far as the full game goes, realistically, how long does it take to play that?
I already know the answer to this when I asked him yesterday.
There you go. My
A long
estimate,
time.
my estimate is about 300 hours.
Yeah.
For the full campaign, which is
That's not bad.
82 turns. Yeah.
And how many the battle goes in game turns? What?
2 hours a turn.
No, 2 hours
and
a
then
turn.
Night is from 2100 to 07.
And how many days does it cover?
9 days.
9 days. So that's 9 days of the fight. at the company level, that's a lot of gaming for.
Right.
I don't think it's an inexpensive game, but think of how many hours of enjoyment you can get for that.
And a few of the scenarios are going to be outside that 9-day window as well. In fact, one of them, one that may not make the cut, is all the way into July.
So a what-if scenario, or
they
not
kept
what if,
fighting
but
over
what
this
happened?
same area. Really, if you look at the history, they cut the peninsula, which is the area of the map, and then they turned north to go to Cherbourg, which is off the map, and then they came back to the same area where the map is to go south. So for about a month and a half, they were operating in that area. So it gives some options for games or scenarios outside of just the campaign.
A lot of scenarios. So
But I
27's a
presume
lot.
27, some of those are going to be much shorter.
Oh, yeah.
when we're
Right,
resuming.
right. And in fact, some of them will be 2 or 3 turns. The beach landings themselves are an 8.5 by 11, and you've got both beach landings. And by both, most people will go, well, we only landed on Utah once. That's true. However, we landed 2 kilometers away from where we were trying to land. So we have both as an option. You have where we actually landed and where they wanted to land. And the planned was actually a much worse, would have been much worse for the Americans, and it plays out that way.
Okay.
The same thing as far as a hypothetical goes. Tom's got a great scenario that if you're familiar with the battle, the 82nd Airborne was dropping on really the western side of the peninsula up until just a few days before the landings. And
May 24th is when they realized that would be a problem. May 28th is when they issued the order to change.
So
7 days before the invasion.
So there's a full first day in campaign where you drop the 82nd way over on the west side and have to fight that way, and that's a lot harder for the Americans.
What we've got here on the table is kind of something else you're working on in that same series.
Yeah, so what's great is the Grand Tactical Series, I think it's thriving in what we're producing for it, at least. We mentioned that there's Where Eagles Dare, Devil's Cauldron, Mercury, No Question of Surrender. Right now on pre-order is another GTS game, which is Race for Bastogne. And it's a 2-map game that covers the German attack with 3 divisions, the 2nd Panzer, the Panzerlehr, and the 26th Volksgrenadier, all the way from the river to Bastogne back here. And it's really unique because you've got 3 divisions attacking, and there's really only an infantry regiment defending at the beginning of the battle. But because of the terrain, particularly the river crossings and the road network, and to an extent the weather, they were able to really hurt the Germans by slowing them up. And then as they broke through that line here at Clairvaux and the next river line, the Americans had a combat command reserve from the 9th Infantry Division that they threw in front to slow them down a little bit more. And then by the time the Germans were getting to Bastogne over here, you had the 101st and Combat Command B from the 10th Armored show up, and that turns into the battle. In reality, it was a blasted design and play test. When you look at the force ratios, my gosh, the Germans should have taken Bastogne, but historically and in game terms, the 2nd Panzer Division needs to continue on, and so do 2/3 of the Panzerlehr, and that leaves the 26th Volksgrenadier Division reinforced to reduce Bastogne after that. So that's the whole game. Yeah. Goes from it's about, again, 9 days maybe of fighting, 8 or 9 days of campaign days in GTS. So it can be another long game. It's not 5 maps, so it's only 2. And there's some great fighting. I think GTS really shines with maneuver warfare, whether it's, you're fighting up that corridor to get to Arnhem, or you're landing on the beach and everything's moving around, you're trying to push out. And I think you see that in Race for Bastogne, with the Germans trying to maneuver through this difficult terrain and the Americans slowing them down to get to Bastogne and then off the map. So it's a maneuver series, if you ask me, and I think this is a good maneuver game.
And how far away is this one?
This is done. In fact, you're looking at pretty much the production maps already drawn by Nico. He and I are going back and forth on the counters in anticipation of this hitting its pre-order numbers, because it's already on pre-order. If you go to the Multi-Man Publishing site,
It has been since last year. I remember seeing
it is,
this.
yeah. It's been just about a year. I think they put it on Winter Offensive a year ago or so.
Okay.
So actually, it was a WBC just after WBC last year. So it's just been a year. But that's available. A couple other things that they're in the GTS pipeline. MMP started to put together a magazine of articles on GTS. I think that'll be available, and we've got a companion game that's really a one map, or in this case, probably 2/3 of a map, because some of the command cards are on the map. That's another maneuver battle based on the Panzer fighting in November before the Ardennes offensive in the Saar region during the Lorraine campaign. And that's, again, another very fluid maneuver battle with the Panzer attacking, the 4th Armored Division counterattacking, so it's a lot of back and forth.
I presume that's designed to help introduce people to the system, kind of get them into it.
Yeah.
Get a feel for what it is and
Yes.
how it works and where it came from.
Exactly, and understand that those great mechanics that it has as far as maneuver and command and control.
So while we appreciate you guys sitting down with us, this looks awesome. Greatest, what is it? I'm gonna get it wrong again. Is it Greatest Day?
Greatest day,
Utah
Beach.
That looks amazing, and we'll show you a lot of pictures of all that because it's huge, and it's one of those games people just
Big and
stand around just
beautiful.
watching people play, and the artwork looks fantastic. Very excited for that. A lot of cool stuff from GTS. A game I've not played yet, so I'll be waiting for that publication to get into it as well. I think. I appreciate you guys sitting down with us and telling
thanks,
us all
guys.
about this. Thank you very much.
Great,
Oh,
really
super.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.